Well, good evening once again. Day 296 of the Biden administration. The committee investigating the January 6th riot and insurrection is now on the brink of a new fight with another of Trump's top lieutenants, former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. He was originally subpoenaed back in late September. He's been negotiating with investigators. But tonight, the chairman gave him an ultimatum. In a letter, the panel insists he appear to turn over documents to give a deposition tomorrow, 10 a.m., or, quote, the Select Committee will view Mr. Meadows' failure to appear at the deposition as willful noncompliance. Such willful noncompliance would force the Select Committee to consider invoking the contempt of Congress procedures. That means Meadows could share the same fate as Steve Bannon, who was referred to the Justice Department for possible prosecution 3 weeks ago because not all insurrectionists are eager to cooperate, it turns out. Mark Meadows' attorney has insisted his client didn't have to appear because he was covered by Trump's claim of executive privilege. Biden White House has now made it quite clear in no uncertain terms that it rejects that claim. Executive privilege is just not a thing in this case. Also today, a federal appeals court in D.C. has taken on the case, meaning Trump's effort to block the committee from seeing any and all records in the National Archives that date back to what was going on in the White House on January 6th. Federal judges have now slowed everything down. They've scheduled arguments in the case for November 30th, which means it will be weeks now before the committee might see Trump's records. And they won't be turned over tomorrow, as the committee and so many Democrats had hoped.
I actually don't think it's a huge setback. I think, obviously Trump's folks will spin this as a win because there's a lack of wins, frankly, on any of their legal side. This is not unexpected. I think we expected, frankly, that there would be a stay issued by the appeals court. We also see a very accelerated timeline to hear this case. It's not going to slow down our investigation, and I expect that, keeping the Supreme Court potentially aside, we'll have these documents fairly soon.
Meanwhile, President Biden and his team are now grappling with the challenge of trying to get his sweeping domestic plan passed as inflation strains Americans all across the country. Republicans and some moderate Democrats say President's spending bill will lead to further price increases. Now, some liberal Democrats are coming forward to defend Biden's plan as a solution for inflation.
I'm back home in California. I understand that prices are going up. I mean, gas is almost $5 here. The price of eggs have gone up. The price of milk has gone up. Other colleagues get that. So I don't think we're out of touch. We've got to get people back into the labor market. That will help increase the number of goods. And the Build Back Better agenda actually helps do that.
Much more on that later. Today, the president honored the sacrifices of those who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces. This is the first Veterans Day in 2 decades without U.S. troops engaged in active warfare overseas, the first since the end of the nation's longest war in Afghanistan. Biden took part in the annual ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown on the 100th anniversary of the monument there at Arlington. He then praised our nation's veterans.
It's a badge of courage that unites across all ages, regardless of background, because to be a veteran is to have endured and survived challenges most Americans will never know. Our veterans represent the best of America. You are the very spine of America, not just the backbone. You're the spine of this country.
Earlier today, the White House announced efforts to provide more support for veterans who have been exposed to the carcinogenic smoke from the burning of latrine waste on overseas military bases, so-called burn pits. Also tonight, there is a new development in the aftermath of last week's election. New York Times reporting that tomorrow, Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican who tried to unseat Governor Phil Murphy in New Jersey, will concede defeat at long last. Ciattarelli went too far on election night, talking about his historic achievement and his transition team going to work that week. Well, the problem for him is Murphy is now ahead in that race by some 74,000 votes.